All right, so it's 3 p.m. and we are all set to begin with our for this exciting webinar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are all set to begin with another stimulating session on connecting the dots. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed speakers for being a part of the panel discussion. Welcoming Mr. Milind Mutallik, Head Employee Experience, Acolyte Digital. Ms. Shikha Verma, Founder and CEO, Vibrant Vibes Consulting. Ms. Sakshi Mandhyan, Founder and Psychologist, Mandhyan Care. And Ms. Manu Saigal, Director, Edico. Our esteemed panelists would be sharing their views on employee mental health and well-being. It is increasingly being recognized, especially most post-pandemic, that the mental health of employees is a crucial determinant in their overall health, and in addition, poor mental health can also lead to burnout amongst employees, seriously affecting their ability to contribute meaningfully in both their personal and professional lives. The objective is to discuss how organizations can ensure that the mental health of employees is prioritized and take initiatives that can benefit the overall well-being of the employees. HRAI welcomes you all to the session on connecting the dots. To know more about HRAI and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We will be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our moderator for the session, and further she can take it forward from there. Ms. Manu Saigal, Director, Edico. With over 2 decades of experience in turning around businesses, P&L management, framing and executing new initiatives, people management, detailed task and resource planning, she has acted as a single point contact for clients in escalation situations and has deep experience in senior client handling across industries. Proven areas of expertise are building long-term customer relationships, creating winning teams, setting up new businesses and practices from scratch, leadership centered around authenticity, inclusion, and coaching, entrepreneurial abilities and skills in translating vision and deliver on high impact decisions. In her current role, Manu leads the general staffing business of Edico India. You can follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Over to you, Ms. Manu.
Thank you so much, Faisal. And I'm so glad to be here, excited. Without taking much time, let me just straight get into introducing all the esteemed panelists. We have Milind Mutallik. Milind is currently heading employee experience at Acolyte Digital India. He believes in practices by the quote Michael Legrand had, "The more I live, the more I learn, the more I learn, the more I realize, the less I know." To him, Gyan, knowledge leads to aspiration, prerna, and learning. Adhyan leads him on the path of awakening, which is mukti. An HR professional with over 30 years of experience, around 2 decades with information technology organizations, the 3 decades witnesses and worked on changing dynamics of business world with the change in work, workplace, work resources. He has worked on managing employee life cycle and major facets of people function. His core expertise are in employee engagement, performance management, retention strategies, HRMS, employee experience, digitalization, HR analytics, M&A, comp and ben, and rewards. Thank you so much, Milind, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Moving
Thank you
on.
so much.
Thank you. Moving on, Shikha Verma is a learning and development specialist with 20 plus years of corporate experience with organizations like Hero, Wipro, Honda, Yamaha, Panasonic. She's passionate about developing women and fostering future-ready and happier leaders. Her company, Vibrant Vibes Consulting, organizes online and offline events, leadership trainings, and acts as advisory to create well-being strategy. She has impacted thousands of lives as global happiness and mindfulness coach. She's a multi-award winner, a motivational speaker, author of thousands of articles and posts on human capital, who was recently on BBC World News as well, also known as Passionpreneur. You can follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same is there in the chat window. Thank you so much, Shikha, for spending this time with us.
It's a pleasure, Manu. Thank you for having me.
We also have Sakshi with us, Sakshi Madhyan. Sakshi Madhyan is an established psychologist, award-winning happiness coach, wellness, and leadership expert, a keynote speaker with over 10 years of quality experience with various Fortune 500 companies. She is the founder of Madhyan Care, a positive mental health initiative. Sakshi helps organizations with mental well-being blueprints and developing a positive workplace culture. She also is a certified practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and rational emotive behavior therapy. I need to understand this more from you, Sakshi. Sakshi Madhyan has also recently been awarded as one of the 51 most fabulous global happiness leaders by the World HRD Congress. She has been working with different sections of the society in promoting the vision of positive mental health for all through her venture, Madhyan Care. She also has done session on emotional fitness at HRAIs, which was appreciated by many participants. She's passionate about building a happy and empathetic society. We once again look forward to an exciting session from her today. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same is there in the chat window. Thank you so much, Sakshi, for joining us today.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And about the surname, it's Mandhyan, Man and Dhyan.
Oh, wow. Okay,
That's the surname and the company's name. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thank you.
With that, I'm so excited to be part of this panel discussion to hear your views on such an important topic in today's era. I'm not going to spend much time. We already have a start note from Faisal, and we've heard the diverse backgrounds that our esteemed panelists bring on the table. Without taking much time, I'll straight jump into the questions. And the question, I'll just go into a round robin with no specific sequence there, but maybe I'll start with Milind, Shikha, and then I'll move on to Sakshi. The first question that I have for you: how can organizations redesign the work experience to give employees greater latitude in how they can accomplish their work goal, taking into consideration their mental well-being, mental health, and a holistic view? So to start with, Milind, I would love to hear your views about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. First and foremost, congratulations to HRAI to have all of us here. And Faisal has already told us I can't speak, or any of the panelists can't speak for more than 2 to 3 minutes. So I made my points ready quickly to make it in 2 to 3 minutes, because HR folks, you give them a chance, they will go on ranting. Okay, so here I am. One of the important aspects is the aspects of mental health is a new to the corporate. We have done the work earlier. However, all of us have faced some different times, uncertain times in last few years. And the whole aspect of what is needed has completely changed. And that's what my feeling when I look at the floors of the organization. I will speak more towards knowledge industry or IT organization, since last about 20 years I'm working with them. So the first and foremost, I feel, is giving the confidence on this uncertainty which is around us. That yes, we are there with you as an organization, we are doing well, is the first aspect. The second one, we have to look at the hybrid work currently which is happening. Many of the employees we hired in last 3 years are not at the same location where our offices are. So one of the important aspect is how do we reach out to both these aspects of physical people who are coming into the office and the virtual one. Have you got the complete manual to do that? No, we are learning as we go, and that's one of the very important aspect. And that being a reason, the whole employee life cycle, be it onboarding, be it engagement, learning and development, training, work schedules, especially I'm talking about the work schedule because in the virtual mode, we have heard this complaints about any of the time you can call up anyone because anyway you're working from home. So that's what the question was, or the expressions were. And work-life balance is very critical. One of the aspects which we learned post this pandemic and coming back to work for last 6-8 months, we are trying various models, is offboarding has become very, very critical aspect along with the onboarding. And that's my realization when it comes to organization redesign is more from perspective looking at both hybrid as well as physical as well as the virtual work. One of the important aspect I would say from the redesigning is more than redesign, it is a design itself. Because it's a new thing for all of us. We were doing certain things, obviously, but they were more, I would say, towards hygiene. Or maybe, we are doing it because it is one of the part of engagement activity. But now it's a focus which is required. Another important aspect is how do we really look at this as a opportunity for others to express themselves. So creating that environment, having that particular aspects there as in the organization is one of the major aspects to achieve the goal of organization as well as the employees. I will just touch upon not more into details at this juncture, but I'm saying, it's a new topic for the corporate. And unless management, HR, each of the leaders in their place does not consider it as important, will not able to achieve the goal which is expected. I'll come to more details when we have the next questions or to the, Sutradhar again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Milind. And rightly mentioned, some of these aspects like the hybrid work culture, work-life balance, some of these things have, this is something that COVID has taught us over the last 2 years that has accelerated. We were always thinking about it, but I guess things have accelerated over the last 2-3 years, and a lot more thought is going into these aspects. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Over to you, Shikha, your views, your thoughts. You have a great blend of being a happiness coach and also worked in organizations. So you know it from both sides of the table. So happy to hear from you.
Actually, this is the reason why I stepped into that space of being a coach and a consultant, because we saw a scope of doing so much more for organizations. And now the need had actually gone up multifold across the length and breadth of the entire nation and globe, so to say. Coming to your question, I honestly feel, Manu, that right now companies need more willpower and willingness to work on the aspect of employee well-being and mental health. The problem that happens even today with corporates is they see it as a frill and they feel it's not measurable, and it's still a very heavy cost for them when it comes to doing engagements or activities for their employees' well-being. So I don't want to sugarcoat my words here because I'm very, very candid with my clients. At all point in time, our objective is to create value and to actually show them the mirror. If we're not seeing the truth, then there's no point doing whatever engagements, right? So to begin with, I feel one of the things that companies miss out is to see that you need to start doing interventions for the whole being and not just the physical being. So I see a lot of companies did a lot of work pre-pandemic on the physical well-being of employees. There were, a lot of fitness efforts. They had apps to kind of help their employees to move around, to do the number of steps necessary for your well-being. And it does add to your well-being. There is no doubt around it. But having said that, today's time, post the pandemic, employees are feeling extremely burnt out and drained of all their energies. So their ability to focus is very, very low. Their energy level is very, very low. And that will not bring that kind of productivity or the output that companies and the leaders want to see, right? So if we start investing on their spiritual well-being, their emotional well-being, their financial well-being, their relationship well-being, that's where the real output or rewards will come to the organizations. Now, the problem that I see happening in corporate is there's very little understanding of how these subjects need to be treated. So it boils down to the competency of the HR L&D team, so to say, who are there to design this at a strategic level. So if I may very clearly say that, you have to start realizing that there is a purpose behind doing this for your company. You have to know there are statistics to support it. But to really create that experience, you have to focus on the whole being and not expect them to bring their, one part of their being only to the company. We want them to be segmented. We want them to work in that pocket, but bring in that 100% of their whole being. That's not possible. We talk to their head all the time. We don't even use the heart language. So that's the problem. And we want them to be passionate. That's a big miss. So if we really want the employee experience to change, the top thing, according to me, is to look at the whole being and cater to all the facets of well-being to begin with. And to support that, ensure that you build the competencies of your HR L&D to treat the subject with as much sincerity, genuinity, and detailing that may be required. If the person does not have the understanding, the strategy will fall flat. And that's one of the reasons why these initiatives happen in pockets and the output is never seen by companies. So they feel it's a waste of time and they stop doing it. I think that's where the whole it moves into a negative spiral for them. So experiences will come if you start respecting the person, you show more willingness and willpower to do this at a strategic level and not at a tactical level.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shikha. And like you rightly said, it should not be focused only on the physical aspect, but as a wholesome. And that's where, Sakshi, I would want to love to hear your thoughts that what are these few necessary initiatives that the organizations should take up in this space of mental health and well-being of employees. Sakshi, your views.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Manu. And I was listening to both the panelists, and it's so interesting that they covered mostly all of it. And so I'll highlight 2-3 points here. But when we talk about mental health, when we talk about redesigning and how to incorporate new steps to create a fair organization for the employees, the first thing that we focus is on the why. Like while we're talking about mental health, but why do we need to focus upon it? Now, it's not something that, the strategy will be common to all. Each organization has a different work and services and products. So each organization will weigh and measure their own engagement and accordingly figure out what programs will suit their employees. So understanding the why of it is crucial here, the why we need to do what we are planning to do. So if we want to emphasize upon mental health, then why? What are the areas that my organization needs to focus upon instead of going in a very generic way? So being very specific with your why, finding out the underlying values, and then working upon the designing of the program would be crucial. And while you're figuring out the why, it's important to understand that mental health is a continuum. It's not something that is to be used once in a while. And if I see the last 2-3 years of COVID journey, organizations have really put a lot of effort into mental wellness of the employees. And it's a wonderful initiative by the organizations. However, it shouldn't be just need-based. It should be on a continuum, because while we talk about productivity, retention, employee engagement, all of this works in continuum of the mental health of employees. So if we focus on the why and understand the continuum, it can really help us to build a more holistic program. And while we are building the holistic program, we can cater to different segments of mental health. One can be the educational awareness, because unless and until the employees understand the basics of psychology or mental well-being, it's difficult for them even to, take initiative with each other. So educational programs and then the training programs for the managerial level, so that they're able to know the language of mental health, what are the questions to ask someone who is going through issues, and then creating the basic programs for engagement where the employees find purposefulness and meaningfulness. See, if we talk about any employee in today's time, if he is happy, if he finds meaning, if he finds himself contributing to the organization, he's sustained. So the overall, if you see the aspect of what we're talking today, it goes on to the tangent of sustainability and continuum. If these two words are kept in our mind, I think the why will be answered and we'll be able to create the 4 aspects of the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Sakshi. Yeah, sustainability, continuity, that's important, and it should not be a one-time activity. Today, the organization is a mixed bag of, the workforce is very different. It's all Gen Z, the millennials, and the way you interact, the way you engage, the way they think, that their perspective about things are very, very different. And that brings me to the next question, that when we are in an organization, while everybody plays a role in it, to create that happy workplace, to create a good environment for the employees, for their mental health and well-being, specifically, it boils down to, ultimately, people look up to the HR and they look up to the leadership team. So coming back to you, Milind, on this, that what do you think the role of the HR and the leadership is for the employees' mental health?
Okay. So the first and foremost, continue from what last I've said, is this is a new subject. So to create a champions in HR as well as in leaders, they need to be first assessed. They need to be first being trained on how do you understand certain aspects about the mental health. And as an organization, we have been doing efforts towards it, that, HR team as well as, because anywhere, even when I talk about my experience on psychometrics, we need to mature the folks to see that they are able to read it out properly, don't label the folks, etc. So similar way, there are don'ts which they have to learn very well when they're learning for the mental health. So HR as well as leaders have to go through that round of learning, being assessed, and then be ready to get into this particular initiatives. As a leaders, I would say, leaders at all levels, rather, I would say, need to understand it. Because see, again, as I said very clearly, that there's a huge, so-called change in the whole of a workforce which we have. In last 2 years or 3 years, when we hired a folks, we have not seen them physically. In my own terms, I call it is, I'm able to see 1/3 of a person and 2/3 is hidden. So it's like a personality, iceberg model, that I'm able to see only, 1/3 of a person, 2/3 I have not seen, but they are delivering it to me. Now, reaching out to them and getting their aspects, okay, onto what are their problems, how we can resolve it. First of all, we don't know all the details about them. Somebody physically works with you for some time, you're able to know the whole aspects about them. So one of the complexity which is coming today is understanding the whole of people which you have with you and coming from a different backgrounds, locations, environment, and I would say different stages of their life. So example, we have hired in last year a campus grads, okay, those who are coming from engineering colleges, and big number of them, about 500. We found the whole batch is different than what our experience 4 years back or 3 years back. The reason is they also have learned virtually. If you're asking them to come physically to the office and learn, they were not ready for it. Now, challenges, how do you manage these challenges is the biggest complexity for HR and leaders. And that being the reason I feel more than addressing it, first point is to make your base ready with the folks who are able to understand this. I'm not saying only the leaders in HR has to do it. All the leaders, managerial leaders, everywhere they are, they need to learn. And you need to create that as a organizational initiative to see that we are able to educate people, make them aware, and leaders and others needs to be more into terms of coaching or mentoring on that part. So these two aspects I would point out as major need at this point of time, because the complexity is higher at this juncture. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
my response.
Thanks, Milind. And Shikha, your views on it. I would want to hear from you the role of the HR, the role of leadership team that they play in the employees' mental health, given that today the workforce, and we heard that from Milind also, the new batch that they hired this time was completely different from the batch that they hired 4 years back. So the workforce today is thinking very differently. What they require, what their expectations are very different. So how do you bring out that culture, in the organization, given it is hybrid and millennial crowd and all these complexities are just adding on to it. So what role do you think the HR and the leadership team plays in their employees' mental health?
I love to draw an analogy here, Manu. If organization was like the human body, like a human anatomy, the heart, that's your employees, right?
Yeah.
If your heart is not functioning well, you're in dire need of a pacemaker. As of right now, organizations, all the leaders and the HR L&D folks need to act like that pacemaker. Okay, and make this heart function well in all entirety. How many employees in organizations feel safe? How many feel that their inputs are valued by the management, by the company? As per Gallup study, 3 out of 10 feel that their opinion counts. Okay, Work Human Study says only 28% actually feel safe at the workplace. Now, those are startling numbers, statistics for us to actually go back to. If you really talk about the role of HR or leadership across the organization, they need to be the cushion, the support, the backbone, the pacemaker of the entire system. If you're not facilitating processes for people and just believe in controlling all the time, things will not move in this era. In this new work age canvas, with this new workforce, the entire paradigm shift has happened. The need of the hour is different. The kind of leadership required is different. We need more collaborative servant leadership today. We need people to actually create more community kind of a mindset or community kind of, management within groups. Use more collaborative tools and empower every single person. If you cannot allow that kind of autonomy in your system, things will falter here and there, and you will not get efficiency and effectiveness as a leader too. And I love sharing this in another forum also, I spoke about it, that I think it's high time we start looking at the hassle and the hustle culture. The reason we've seen concepts like quiet quitting is because people have started to feel the burnout so much more that they're like, okay, I'm not doing more than this. I'm done. Okay, I only get paid this much. Anyways, the company has a theory to share every time they make losses that they can't give me enough. Why should I do extra? I'm okay doing just enough for the company now. Manu, these phenomena have actually come into play for obvious reasons. There is a breach of trust. Look at the amount of number of employees companies have thrown out in the last 2-3 years alone. Millions. And the amount of lives that have been impacted by it. So we need to be cognizant of the kind of context we are operating in, and not, suddenly, expect that whatever you're doing in those pockets will give you results. No, we need a lot of sustained effort. Like Sakshi said, it has to be a continuum. It has to be done intentionally with a lot of due diligence and care. At every point in time. I've seen a lot of organizations come back to us saying, we need to be honest with the people. Why not tell them they're not taking ownership? I said, at the bottom, at the crux of it, do we know the reason why employees don't take ownership? Because they don't trust. Because they don't feel rewarded. Why are we not asking these pertinent questions and actually going back to employees and telling them what they need to do even today? It's not going to work. So the role of our leader is to facilitate these processes, make things more open, ask and invite their opinions on how to solve real problems, because everyone is it's like you're making the bicycle and riding it at the same time. So like Milind said, we're learning on the go.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have to understand the repercussions of that is that you have to be okay with your vulnerabilities. You have to allow mistakes in your system. You have to allow more openness in your system. You have to invite ideas from people and execute them. And it's okay if some of them don't even work for you.
Yeah.
So start focusing on how to make the systems more hassle-free and remove the hustle culture of your organization, because that's what is leading to the burnout. So every other effort that you may be doing under the umbrella of employee engagement for mental health will not yield you results if you still have a hustle culture in your organization. So I honestly feel these are the paramount pillars that need to be addressed by the leaders in every organization today.
Yeah, yeah. So well said, Shikha. The hassle and the hustle culture, yes. There is a constant tug of war which is happening there, which probably leads to the burnout, yes. Moving on to you, Sakshi, you must have heard the role that you play. You must have heard things from the other lenses. You've been on the other side of the table. So from a leadership perspective, what are your thoughts on this, Sakshi?
See, while I was listening to both the panelists, I was also thinking about the plight of a leader.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that in the family life, just like the husband becomes a sandwich between the mother and the wife, the same goes for the leader, because he is taking care of the employees under him, and then the seniors to whom he has to answer, and there's so much that he has also to go through. So if I see both the perspectives, and this is where I'll say it's more about an open dialogue that is to be, implemented between the hierarchy. If I see. So open dialogue can only happen when there is some time management, because there's so many responsibilities on each designation, right? Be it a leader, be it a junior employee, everybody is going through their own job profile and the tasks that they have to do. This is where time management plays a vital role, which can actually facilitate the open dialogue. If we don't have time, there is no way that we can even have an open dialogue or communicate or even strive to build resilience. So leaders are definitely looked up to as role models. They are the inspiration. However, both of the sections have their own mental health to be taken care of. And if we need to really work upon this, a specific schedule in the calendar can be placed where the interaction can be facilitated between the junior employees and the senior leadership. It's very idealistic to say this. However, it will take time to implement it because of the emergencies and the calendar busyness that everybody has. But this initiative can be taken by the leader himself. So now comes the individual responsibility of specific leaders, how they want to create an impact. And if each leader takes accountability that, okay, this is my team and I need to build the connect, the need to build the connect. If he has that requirement, that is the only time when he'll be able to create the time. So here is the urge to the leaders to have that need to connect, and also the junior employees to have the need to be proactive in their approach. Just because one time you didn't get the time to discuss with the leader, you shouldn't stop and be upset about it. You should also be proactive, understanding that, okay, the leader didn't have time, let me follow up again. You might have to follow up a few times, but be proactive with your approach too and create that balance. That is something that can really help. Other than that, I think leaders should also work upon the compassion bit. I understand that mental health is a vast realm, but implementing some compassion for the employees can really take
Yeah.
the work long way, and it will also add happiness to the employees life. Compassion in the way that yes, the targets are there, yes, they have to behave in a particular way. However, we don't know what each individual is going through, so just giving that lending ear can actually help. Nobody needs solution. I think more the profession that I am in, I've seen, if you give them some space to speak and just share their thoughts, that is enough for them. So I think giving that leeway and showing that compassion, that
Yeah.
okay, I understand what you're going through, can actually build that faith and trust.
Yeah, yeah. Being compassionate, I picked that word from compassionate. Um, Also being a little empathetic, work with the heart around. We also heard Shikha speak about heart and the pacemaker. I think that's very important in today's world, that let's not be too mechanical. Let there be a heart, let there be compassion, let there be some empathy across, so that you listen to the employees. That brings me to my next question, Milind, directing towards you. If you could share anything from your experience, or some initiatives that your organization would have rolled out to promote
Yeah.
better mental health for your employees, either in the current organization, or in the past, that you would have experienced,
Sure,
be it as
sure.
a leader, as a HR person,
Yes,
or as an
yes.
employee. Yeah.
Yep. So the first and foremost, post the pandemic, when we got back, though one of the important aspect is Acolyte Digital, where I'm working currently, has one of the core values, which is happy and healthy workplace. Now, this is a core value we have had, and all the new joinees during the induction, I said this is not added during pandemic. This is very much with us. So, theme point of view, the organization always look at happy employees and healthy employees, and that's something which I was part of that core value discussion, and we got it at that time. So there are many initiatives around it, but what we realize, what is need to change or being brought up new, is the high touch points, and that's the area we are working very closely on to. So what do I mean by high touch points is, before the employee joins, even a candidate joins us, we are sharing very transparently what is the culture of the organization, how are we really living our life. So core values, what are we doing, how we are driving customer success, how we are empowering the people. We have one more value, which is be entrepreneur. So what do I mean by that? How do we really drive that? What are the measurement criteria we have? Okay, coming to high touch points, there are kind of measurements on after they're joining, what they are feeling. We attach a buddy for 3 months. It's not 1 month. These buddies, where
Mhm.
we run our own happiness index at the every year basis. Okay, and we find the people who are at the highest scorers and get them as a buddies for 3 months, because they are the ones who are ambassadors for you to drive certain things. So that is the first part we do. During the onboarding, we have three aspects which we are considering as a program. One is cognitive aspect, what observation they will have and how they would able to plug in. The emotional aspect, generally people try and match their values. Okay, I come from this background, how do I match my value with this organization? Example, somebody is coming, and example I'm saying is, somebody, other employee, they come and hug, and I'm not from the similar kind of a background. There's a value,
Yeah.
kind of mismatch which I would have. So value aspect. And third is physical and being attended well and all. That's part of our induction program. Then the buddy takes over. We ensure the buddy gives more of work related and the whole of a culture related aspects to the employee. In the engagement, we always have this, both physical as well as the mental health aspects. We have got the experts on the board who are running some of the important programs. Yoga, meditation has started more now. And we are covering the families also, because the virtual work happens where we are able to cover the families. Focusing on a particular groups, diabetics, high blood pressure, women groups. Now, this is also helping us. Okay. Further, going ahead, there's a 360-degree communication where leaders address every quarter. Now, this is more to give assurance and a trust. We are the organization where we have not laid off anybody in last 3 years because of shortage of bench. Performance basis, we could have got rid of our folks, but not because they've come on a bench or they're not having a work. Now, this is something building a trust. This 360-degree communication has a lot of initiatives at the leader level, at the global leadership level every quarter. And there is an anonymous link where you can share your feedback to the only top 4 people of executive leadership team it will reach. So creating that confidence in them, okay, creating a trust in them. That's something which we do as a whole of a aspect. We are actually running a model which is typically 5 C's and 2 W's. So what is that 5 C's means? One is typically culture. How do we drive our culture? The second very important is compensation. How do we drive the benefits? Because see, when you talk about compensation, what kind of benefits we give? So example, if you're covering the parents, we are also having that any insurance, which is more than your cover, company will sponsor it. It's not that there are going to be many cases, but even the cases come out of 3,000, let's say 5 cases come in, we're able to contribute there, it enhances the confidence. So that's second, typically a compensation and the benefits with the market. Collaborations. We have many platforms created. We use some of the tools where people can come together to create a communities. And that's what we do through a collaboration. Then we talk about career. Career everybody talks about, but one of the important aspects which we added is convenience. How convenient you are. So example, we have majority of the population working out of Bangalore. And convenience, when you talk about one point which will come into the picture is the travel. Now that's where we say, if you're not able to do it for 5 days, do it 2 days a week. Ensure that all your team is there. So convenience we look at from all perspective, and then come into work-life balance. Very importantly, there are projects where there are different life cycles, and we feel that some of the life cycles you have to adhere to, but how do we give a compensatory ops? How do we reward the folks to do particular thing? And the last but most important is work content, because all the technology folks who are coming into you wanting to be something different than what the aspirations are very high. How do you really modulate? How do you really drive their career? So when I say this, 5 W's, 5 C's and 2 W's is something which we drive, which is more focusing towards employee overall well-being from the organization, and happy and healthy workplace we measure. Now, let me tell you the actual results. All these efforts are done. But when we talk about the engagement activities, our hit ratio is 35% max. So we are here to give everything, but there is a need also from the other side to take it and work on. So and that's a struggle all throughout. I've been very direct and speaking about my experiences even from the past. Organization really has a lot of branding, a lot of initiatives been driven. But people, when it comes to employees, either their leaders or their own project or other aspects, this gets a second importance to it. And that's the irony we are working on to see how do we really go from 35 to 50 or maybe 75 as we go ahead. And that's the challenge or goal we create for ourselves for the next year. So that's broadly what we do towards the mental health, creating a trust, and as rightly said, compassion. We are saying, do we really have a shoulder where I can go and rest my head, or shoulder to, I would say, cry. Many times that's a need of a time where you're not able to express to many of them. One of the other observation, being a young organization from the age point of view, the organization age, currently average age is 28 years. Now, many of these students or rather the candidates who join from engineering colleges, they're away from their house at the age of 18. And this is one of the important aspects which we found out. They're away from the house for their education, post that, engineering education, MBA, and then they will join you. So their whole of a support system was their peers, which are equal or maybe lesser than them in age and experience. So that focus is something which we're trying to give to them, those who are new joining. So that's broadly what we are trying to do. Are we there at 100%? I would candidly accept efforts are there, but success is at the rate of 35 to 50%, I would say, in various initiatives. Okay.
That's wonderful, Milind. And I like how you said that the leadership team addresses on a quarterly basis, which actually stitches back to the sustainability and continuity that Sakshi was mentioning. So unless there's a continuity there, it cannot be a one-time thing. This is something that cannot be a one-time thing. So great, great insight, great examples. Thank you so much, Milind. Moving on to Shikha, if I could hear your views on how well can an organization understand the mental health issues are going on in their organization. It's for any issue, if you want to tackle an issue or if you want to solve an issue, you first need to know that there is an issue. So how do you identify that there is an issue and the organization needs to address that? And a follow-up question to that would be, how can one contribute to the employees, from a mental well-being perspective?
Sure.
Your
I
views,
want
Shikha.
to add to some of the examples like Milind cited. But to take on your first question, Manu, very clearly, I think companies get to know because their matrices are in red. When the attrition rates go up, when the productivity is far lesser, when their efficiencies are low, they're not bringing their 100%. It's very, very clear that their focus levels or their overall mental emotional well-being is not that great. And it's a common phenomena today at a society level, and you cannot expect the organizations to be outside of that because we're all a subset of the bigger society, right? So having said that, the indicators are loud and clear, and every company, the management leaders can see it in the dashboard. It's a different story to actually be able to connect it to the mental emotional well-being and prioritize that at a strategic level, like I said earlier. So that's one part of it, to see it as a critical area to be addressed, to actually cater to it more from a strategy perspective for talent development and retention, rather than doing it as an ad hoc engagement initiative. So that's one. The other part is when it comes to taking initiatives, what all can be done? The start point really is a good survey. I don't know how many organizations today would be aware that there are a lot of options today to use mental emotional platforms who run these questionnaires and surveys for you to gauge the psychological safety of that your employees feel in the organization. Honestly speaking, I think it's more important than getting your audits done. If we can prioritize this more than any other compliance, I think organizations will thrive for sure. So the number one thing we should do is start with a survey. And I've done it in the past in my previous organizations. We had a very clear report, and the bars and the matrices showed us that employees needed something to de-stress. They needed something to kind of unwind themselves during the day. So we had specific areas that we had picked up, and the top 5, we tied that into the entire intervention for that financial year. So some of the things that we ended up doing because of the need that was identified was something like a digital detox. I don't know if you've ever heard that word. We realized that a lot of our employees were youngsters, and this is a common phenomenon, not specific to a certain age group, okay? Employees feel burnt out or they are struggling with mental emotional health, Manu, unfortunately, because we're all tech addicts today. We're just glued to technology. Screen time has gone up, and more so in the last 3 years alone, right? So the initiative that was really, really helpful and is still very, very effective across organizations is the digital detox drive. And what we typically do is we create a digital creche for the organization. We tell them when your employees come in, especially during the food time or touch points where they can engage with each other, no phones are allowed. So they're supposed to lock them, in some kind of a locker if possible. And even at home, at a personal level, there are a lot of learnings that leaders take back with them. And we encourage them to practice this digital creche phenomena, even when they go back home. So simply park your phones, way away from the dining tables where you sit down with your family and have food. And it helps, because that's the time when you actually bond and connect with each other. You're able to nourish and nurture each one of the individuals who you're talking to. So it applies at a personal and professional level. That's one. The other thing that we ended up doing, and was a very focused activity around the need that was identified, was Urja, where we spoke about, their emotional well-being and their ability to understand how every body part pain is connected to how their they're affected emotionally. So if I don't feel supported in my life on the whole, I would have back pain more, right? Lower back pain. Every point, and I'm sure Sakshi being an expert in that would know more and she could add. But these are areas that people weren't privy to. They weren't aware of it. They weren't practicing it. And they weren't even educated enough, if I may say. So when we started doing this drive, we obviously started with education, making them aware of how it impacts you, then leading them to managing it better. We allowed them to take back some techniques which they can practice and bring their feedback back to the counselor. And the counselor was readily available as a part of our EAP to actually support them and coach them through the processes. Because when it comes to handling emotions, they always need a guide or a mentor. So we had very structured interventions designed at every point in time. And this was well communicated. I think the problem, Manu, that companies face is that it's not well communicated in the system. So I may be doing some things as per my design as HRLN, but if my communication is weak, if I've not made my learner well aware of why it's required, how it will help, why it's critical, what do you take back with you, how does it impact you in entirety in your life, then there's very little focus that this person brings even in those sessions. And they may ad hoc take a couple of, their official calls, and they may run away from that training or engagement activity that you're organizing because they don't really know the value in it yet, right? So I think communication, there's nothing like overdoing communication to my assessment. All companies need to educate and drive these initiatives with as much communication in as many forms as possible so that the reminders are happening. As physical beings, I think marketing uses these gimmicks really well to kind of reinforce and ensure that there is a recall created every now and then. So I think OD, L&D functions have to do a great job of marketing such initiatives that are targeted at the emotional, mental well-being of people. So I've done a lot of work myself, created posters, put them around in the office, ensure there are small placards on the canteen tables for that matter, just a reinforcement of what we're doing, say in this particular month. So we had themes and we had interventions every month. And all of that was physically available to them to kind of see in their immediate environment, whether it was office facility, canteen, or the premises where they were sitting on an everyday basis, right? So these are things that are a must do. Besides this, I think one more thing that is working great today and is the need of the hour, as a coach, I've seen it, work for not just youngsters, but even at the leadership level, is the ability to master yourself, self-awareness, self-love. The lack of self-compassion is where a lot of leaders end up becoming very, very blunt and very toxic at their workplaces, right? And we cannot ignore the fact that a lot of organizations are grappling with office politics and toxicity, right? At the same time, we want to do such initiatives and we expect the kind of results there. It's not going to happen. As if we start focusing on building a happier leader is where these things will start falling in place. So either you have bosses or you have happier leaders is what I essentially believe. And to have happier leaders, we must educate them. We must make them aware of their relationship with themselves. I think it's all about how they feel about themselves, which results in that kind of a treatment in the system with their team members too. So I've done happification, Jab We Met Ourselves, as one of my drives with corporates. And I love the engagements that we come up with, the kind of interaction we make in these forums, whether it's online or it's offline. So it doesn't make a difference because we create a safe space and people are okay with, opening up with their vulnerability, so to say. Another initiative that I have done is the Power of Now, where we allow people to tune into the present moment more. Now, what these initiatives do, Mano, is that it allows them time to unwind, right? We all feel that we can be forever on, but that's not true. The burnout is here for real, and it's happening for a reason because we've overexerted ourselves and we've been on an always on mode, right? So that's where we need to ease down. That's where we need the cool off time. We need to be okay with the messy middles and create that culture where you allow these things to happen. So another set of few initiatives that I can recall clearly, which worked great for us, was a nap time after lunch. So mostly when people come back from lunch, they're slightly drowsy. They take a little time to pick up their actual routine work. So that first, 20, 30 minutes is kind of a lull period for most of the employees soon after lunch. We utilized that same time and created a nap time for people for 15 minutes. Not that this was done every day, this was done once a week, every Friday. And it started to pick up so much attention that people came back to us from the other verticals across different offices saying, why don't you do this there as well? Because we tried this only in the corporate office. So then we had to actually come up with a policy around it to drive it across the regional offices as well. So this worked great. And it's a good utilization of that lull period of, where you're kind of rebooting. Anyways, the system is taking time to start off. The other thing today I think companies should do is allow employees to take a mental health leave. I don't know how many companies are doing that, but it's okay to discuss, I don't feel up to it. It's okay for employees to actually call up the manager and say, so I don't feel like coming today. And it should be accepted.
Yeah.
The problem is, Manu, the manager still might go back to the employee and say, what do you mean you don't feel like it? You better come here. There is something important that needs to be closed. So as long as managers are aware, educated, and they understand this is a dire need, and they are compassionate and sensitive towards these requirements, they will start accepting and opening doors to more possibilities like that, where people feel okay with their vulnerability, all right to talk their mind, and they feel safer every single day of their interaction at work. So I think those little things matter more, and they go a long way in making your employees feel happy, contented, safer at the workplace. So that's what I would
think. I connected the most with the digital detox. That's something that we practice at home as well. No phones at the dining table, no phones inside the bedroom. So that's something that we have been practicing, and I think it works really well for the family to connect. So
I want to add one more point, Manu, before you proceed. Sorry. It's on having more fun at work. I think today companies need to let loose, leaders need to let loose, and not take the work and the job too seriously. It's okay to be sincere, but it's not necessary to be serious all the time. This is a message that I think all leaders must carry back, that it's all right to bring that fun element, to have easier conversations, let's say, or even a shift of, say, something like a standing meeting instead of sitting and talking all the time, because that will reduce the meeting time. It will make it more concrete and objective in several ways. Plus, you're ensuring health of your people by not sitting for long hours. So small initiatives, like tweaks like these, really, really are effective, and that's the need of the hour also. So over to you now.
Thank you so much, Shikha. And just being cognizant of the time, we might overspill by a few minutes. I will move on to Sakshi for the one last question, where we've heard Shikha talk about organizations. What are the matrices that we see dipping, and that there is a problem? But at the individual level, how can we tell that someone is having a mental health problem? Are there any signs or symptoms that one should look out for? Sakshi.
Certainly, Manu. Manu, in fact, since we have paucity of time, I see there are 3 questions which are, interconnected from the audience. So I'll answer them also so that we quickly, summarize and conclude the queries as well. So when we talk about mental health at workplace or individually, of course, there are signs and symptoms. In today's time, anxiety has just doubled up. Especially throughout the COVID time and then post-COVID time, dealing with the changes. So we have gone through so much changes initially, from office to working at home, people going through small having small spaces and then working from there, very difficult for them. Then suddenly you adjusted to that environment, and now there's a hybrid model, or you're going back to work again, there's a change. So anxiety and stress has doubled up so much that it's difficult to even address it, and especially when you see mental health, physical health is still it's so overt. You can see it, you can understand it, and you can treat it. Mental health is really covert and difficult to pinpoint. So in order to find out the signs and symptoms, we go on to 4 categories, which is your somatic, bodily symptoms, cognitive or mental symptoms, emotional symptoms, and then behavioral symptoms. So these are the 4 symptoms, 4 categories of symptoms that you will see if you're going through stress, anxiety, etc. So bodily symptoms or somatic symptoms are the first ones and easier to notice because they're overt. So you will see loss in appetite or increase in appetite. Either you're sleeping too much or sleeping too less, so disturbance in your sleep, weight gain, weight loss, aches and pains, sweating, palpitation, heart rate increase, fatigability, you get fatigued really easily. So these are the physical symptoms that you would see. Cognitively, you would see that there'll be issue with respect to decision making, overthinking, procrastination, rumination. You're brooding over one thing again and again. So when you see all of these, you know that there is some issue. Emotionally, you would see that you have changes in your mood. You cry easily, or you are short-tempered, you're getting upset very easily, taking things to your heart, feeling negative. All of those are the emotional symptoms that you may see. Behaviorally, you would see that you might isolate yourself from people. So earlier you would sit with people, eat, talk, chat, meet. Now you're socially alienating yourself. You don't want to hang out with people, or you want to just be in your own zone. Absenteeism is high. At the same time, you'd see that the intake in caffeine, tobacco use, alcohol use just goes to another level. So if you were smoking 1 or 2 cigarettes and now you're smoking 10 to 20 cigarettes, you know that there's something that is happening. So this is related to individual and even in organization, because someone was asking how to see for employees that they're stressed or not. So these are the personal level of reasons, the 4 categories. And I'm running with speed so that you are able to cover up everything. And then, I was taking the survey and we understood that a lot of employees get stressed when they go through these 5 important aspects. One is the favoritism. If they feel that there's favoritism, there's white favoritism, they will feel stressed, they'll feel unhappy, they'll not have that, feeling of being included. Work-life balance, when one is working more and the other one is getting more of offs and is able to take the breaks, is able to finish the work quickly. So work-life balance, another reason for stress. Then, of course, equal opportunity to be recognized. Some people get more recognition as compared to the others. So equal opportunity to get that recognition. Or office politics, you would see that some people are the point of conversation and some people are not. So that office politics becomes really, difficult for few people to deal with, especially sensitive people. And lastly is fair pay. So if you see these 5 important aspects can really create stress in employees. When you feel that you're not adequately being paid, someone is getting more paid than is getting paid more as compared to you. So these are the few aspects which were, seen in the survey that lead to employees feeling stressed. The idea is to build trust there. And these are the categories of symptoms. Now, not everybody will go through all of the symptoms. Some will have 4 or 5 symptoms. Some will have 6 symptoms only from the physical category. So you need to see and understand for your individual self that what is bothering you, and then working upon it and communicating it also to your immediate leader, so that you are actually keeping people in loop, to provide you with adequate support and also to guide you what to do further. These are the symptoms that usually people would go through. Now, as far as who will frequently experience burnout, what are the psychological and emotional traits? Of course, few are from the same categories of symptoms that I've spoken of. However, you would see that people pleasers who want to please people, people who have the inability to say no, people who commit more than they can deliver, they usually go through burnouts more, because in the quest for being present, being being there all the time, having that FOMO, or wanting to do everything for everyone, can actually lead you to burnout. So understanding your boundaries and being okay to not do some things which are beyond your capability in the moment is important. If you understand the boundaries that this is what I'm capable of and communicate it effectively, I think that can help you to avoid burnouts. And taking, of course, the adequate number of vacations and breaks can really help you go long run.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sakshi.
Completed
Yeah,
all.
and I, if I look at the questions in the chat box, I believe we have fairly covered all of them. But if there are any further questions, please do
There's
write
one.
back. I'm sure.
Just
Yeah.
one, how to handle day-to-day stressful events. I would recommend only 2-3 things here. The first one is make yourself flexible, put change as an opportunity and not as the rigidity factor. If you become friendly with changes, your mind will also become easy. So be good with changes. Don't become so rigid
Yeah.
there, because change, if you resist to change, you really become stressed. That's one basic tip. You need to work upon it. Of course, there are layers to work upon. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's very easy that I said I'm comfortable with change and then I become comfortable. This is where you can take support from the experts like me and the others in the fraternity. At the same time, please work out on the basics of exercising and meditation. It really takes you a long way, having your meals on time. And lastly, have a mentor. Have a mentor both in your personal and your professional life with whom you can communicate and take some insights. If these 3 things are done, it can really help you to be more balanced. And last but not the least is to know that problems are temporary. They will not remain forever. So in that moment, it looks like, that it's inevitable. However, the intensity of emotion reduces. So that's the good part and the good news, that your emotions don't remain the same. So have that feeling and faith that this will change and this will not last forever. And of course, take support and ask for help. Great.
Or you get in touch with Sakshi. Yeah. So with that, Faisal, I hand it over back to you. All yours.
Yeah. So before we go to the Q&A round, we will be running a poll to have the participants' valuable feedback on this session.
Faisal, I may have to take your leave. I had an appointment at 4 and it has been
No
delayed
problem.
by 15 minutes already. So I'll literally quickly now jump into that appointment. Otherwise, the client will keep on waiting. So thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, Manu.
Thank you so much, Sakshi.
Lovely.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sakshi.
Sakshi.
Interacting with you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye. So I believe the questions have already been on the chat box. So the second question is with respect to HR. So if Mr. Milind or maybe Shikha also can help in
Sure.
that.
Which one second we are talking about?
being
Question asked me,
an
being
HR
HR leader, how can I understand the causes of stress of the employees? How do I ensure their workplace stress? Now, there are 2 aspects to it, I would say, from my point of view. One is, you're able to hear me well now?
Yes, we are able
Okay.
to hear you.
So one, I'm saying as a HR, we generally have a connect with the employees more on a frequent basis. So every organization has HR business partners. A similar way we have a talent engagement partners. We touch base with them on a frequent basis. So we run this quarterly round where we try and know from them top 3, bottom 3 for them. And when we know this top 3, bottom 3, we are able to understand whether the employee is under stress, more from the point of view of work-life balance. And as I made a mention, work-life balance does come in when there are project life cycle. How do we do it? Bring it up to the leader's knowledge that either you need more resources or this resource needs to have the right input or other break. So, ensuring that if need be, add the manpower. Okay. Also see that we do have some of the EAP and other helplines where we try and direct these people to see that they're able to get some guidance.
Yeah.
One of the other aspects which I want to highlight is many a times the stress, or for that matter even the mental health issues, come out of the family aspects, and this has happened post the pandemic. We have seen many of the either the, demises in the family or relation and close one, has brought in a lot of impact onto the work, and feeling that anxiety, feeling that depression was very much evident to us. Now, to get over this, we really have connected with some of the psychologists to see that we take them through. But stress, again, could be divided, either it's coming from outside or from the inside of the work environment, organization level, like, equity, which has been talked about, fairness we talked about. So all these aspects are something where the measurements are done by many organizations. We also try and look at the surveys and other things by which we're able to understand whether the manager is treating relationship wise. So we typically go on to the work, relationship, compensation or benefit, infrastructure support, and would you really recommend this organization to somebody else? Now, this gives us the gist of it, and then we do a deep dive. I said, every quarter when you try and get the report card, that's really helps us to, deep dive and look at the stressful people. But I am telling you, stress, maybe, I would term it as even positive stress is required. Otherwise, some of the targets which you need to complete will not happen. So it's a mixed bag. Wherever it's impacting negatively needs to have attention and the further steps taken. That would be my input.
I think if I were to add to what Milind said, a lot of points he's already covered. Essentially, the causes of stress could be several, and that could be evident through whatever survey and research you do yourself. But having said that, creating that ecosystem is more critical for leaders and organizations. So have those, it's like, you lay the buffet and let them select whatever is relevant for them as and when it's required. The problem that happens is when HR takes initiatives, we almost push it down and shove it down their throats. This is the time that we are organizing this. Right now, you avail this particular solution. You need it. That kind of a methodology and approach won't work. So what's critical is to create the buffet and that kind of an ecosystem where you leave the decision on the employee as and when they feel necessary. They may pick the one that's relevant for them. That kind of ecosystem is a must-have today. Stress is critical. Milind almost said that there's something called eustress and distress. The eustress is the positive stress that will let your employees actually feel challenged and bring out the best out of them. Something similar to what sports people do, when they exert themselves or they ensure that they're regularly practicing and at the skill to better it every time, right? That kind of stress is critical for every organization and every employee to create. So it's, I think the dipstick really is where you feel the employees feel the burnout. That it's going to the distress side more, where you feel the employees share negative feedback around their relationship maybe in the organization or their satisfaction from the job or how they feel about the work environment. There, the stress is going on the negative side. So there are negative triggers. There are, drivers that can be gauged through these tools. And you would then know that this is the kind of stress that you need to address. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Shikha. Any inputs from you, Ms. Manu, on this question?
No, I think Milind, Shikha and Sakshi earlier before logging off, she kind of covered all of this. To me, for an employee, I think the connect between an employee and the organization is through the manager. I think the manager plays a very, very important and vital role here. Very, very simple thing of being approachable, having a listening ear, being empathetic. We spoke about all of this during our session today. I think if the managers are approachable, available for people, and knowing that there could be a problem because a manager himself or herself is an employee as well, so go through that cycle. So if they're able to understand that and connect and be available for the employees, I think it works a very long way.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Manu, for this, for taking us through this session and making it such interactive and exciting. Thank you, Mr. Milind, Ms. Shikha, Ms. Sakshi, for sharing your valuable thoughts and insights with us. It has been a privilege having you all for this engrossing session. To all those who wish to learn and grow, you can access the recording of today's session on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. Before we conclude with our today's session, we would also want to thank all our event partners, Geishia, NASSCOM COE, Talgro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local, Ahmedabad and India, for supporting HREI events. To know more about them, request you to kindly visit the links provided in the chat window. Do join us for our masterclass series starting next week from December 26, 2022. That's it from our today's webinar. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Manu.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye. Bye,
everyone. Thank you,
everyone.
Manu.
Thanks.
Bye. Take
Thank you,
care.
Faisal. Have a good day.
Everyone. Bye-bye.